if they're going to be the operator, the owner operator of the franchise, the brand, they kind of need to be a jack of all trades in some ways. They just need to have that, first of all, they just need to have that go-getter mentality. They just need to look at a problem and fix it.
So you have a passion for fitness and the desire to start your own business, but launching a massively successful fitness business is extremely complex. The systems, operations, hiring, firing, coaching, sales, and marketing are critical to success. Where do you even start? This show will give you the answers. Here is Bedros Keuilian and Bryce Henson, your hosts of the Fitness Franchise Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms.
Hey, welcome back, friends, to another incredible episode. And before I get to introducing today's guest, and so we can help spread the message and help more people in fitness, in business, and in franchising, go ahead and please subscribe and like on YouTube and write us an all-star 5-star review on iTunes. That way we can keep producing this content for free. So now to the show, and for today's guest, who has an incredible rap sheet. So here we go. He is a franchising specialist and expert in multi-unit, multi-brand ownership as a franchisee and a franchisor. Now, from franchisee to franchisor to regional developer to investor, consultant, and now podcast host, Erik has worn many hats over the last 2 decades. His diverse experience and unique insights help him advise private clients on how to scale their emerging franchise brands. Now, Erik has owned 6 brands in 8 different states, but more than growing his businesses, Erik has a passion for helping people. And that's why he's helped 1,000 people and counting find great opportunities that meet their lifestyle goals so they can find the same freedom through franchising that he now enjoys. And after helping so many of his clients find success in franchising, Erik has founded the Franchise Tribe Mastermind, which is a group dedicated to helping franchisees learn how to shortcut the path to success without sacrificing their lifestyle. Erik Van Horn, my friend, welcome to the show. We are super excited to have you.
Bryce, it is great to be here, man. Super excited.
This is going to be fun. Well, lots to get through today, but first and foremost, our audience wants to hear the backstory.
All right. Well, I grew up in South Dakota, small town, like under 10,000 people. I left college, was ready to go to law school in Virginia, signed up for law school. And that's when I realized a straight C student probably should not be going to law school. So I quickly bailed law school after being registered, going through orientation and all of that. So I started up this little lawn company because my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I'm like, I'm just going to make my way. So I was mowing lawns and planting grass and doing all of that kind of thing, just like really, really small. And I was getting my real estate license at the time because I wanted to be a real estate investor. So I was out on a hot summer day working on some older lady's house, planting flowers and digging up bushes and replanting stuff. And she comes out with a glass of water and says, "Hey, Erik, you want some water? It's like really hot out here." And so we just started talking and basically says, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "A real estate investor. I want to start investing in real estate and I'm getting my license, etc." And then she goes on to tell me that she did that with her husband about 20 years earlier. She said, "We bought a condo down by the beach and we did it for tax purposes." And she went in to explain why they did it. But what was most important to me, she says, "We don't want it anymore. Like, we don't want that condo by the beach anymore. And the person that is leasing it for us is collecting money every month for being the leasing agent, but won't sell it for us." And she was mad at him. So I said, "Well, I'll buy it." I didn't have any money, like zero money. And she said, "Well, great." And at the end of that interaction, I'd given her $100 and an option contract. And the option contract says, "I will buy your home within 30 days and I will pay for the closing costs." So I got that signed, and my worst downside was losing $100. So I went to my future real estate broker and I said, "Gary, you're not going to believe what happened, but this is what happened. I'm going to see my parents will partner with me on this." And they said, "Erik, that sounds too good to be true. Like, that just doesn't happen." The reason I was going to buy it for just the closing paying the closing costs, because she was going to give me her house. I was going to assume it with an assumable mortgage. And so that's what made that deal really unique. She had an assumable mortgage and she said, "Just pay the closing costs and it's yours." And so I took that to my mom and dad, and they thought, there's no way this is true. And Gary, my future real estate broker, said, if you guys don't do this, I'll partner with Erik and we'll split the deal 50-50. Well, I partnered with my parents. We bought the house. I sold it to them, and I had my first large chunk of cash sitting in my bank account. I'm just like, I made this within like 60 days, and I want to do more of this. And then I went to this franchise convention with a friend because he was looking at businesses, and I was a business guy with a lawnmower, and I was wanting to expand into other businesses. And so I went to this Discovery Day, which was really their annual convention of Liberty Tax Service. And I thought, man, this sounds really cool. And I ended up buying a Liberty Tax Service. And then my parents said, well, if you're going to do this, I'll go ahead and do one with you. So I bought first. They came in and bought another location in a different state. And then I think what they thought is, man, we don't want to see Erik screw up. We're going to partner with him. We're going to do this bigger in Kansas City. And that's how I got my start in franchising. We grew our first franchises in Kansas City and then bought an area development for that particular brand in Austin, Texas. So that's really how I got started in franchising.
Wow. That's a backstory, man. Now I'm curious, you're kind of prodding along and you end up going through Liberty Tax. Had you had any experience in accounting, tax, et cetera? Because now you're owning this franchise system. Just curious, what the insight on that looked like.
I was told, and it turned out to be true, that you're not in the tax business, you're in the marketing and operations business. And I'm like, I can market. Don't know about operating, but I can market. And so they actually said, we don't really want CPAs or accountants or people there preparing the taxes. And as I learned about the brand, I thought the best people in that particular franchise were not accountants or CPAs. So I didn't have a clue about any of that. And I never did a tax return myself. So I was forced to work on the business and not in the business. So no experience, and I still don't have experience.
That's an incredible takeaway. And Erik, I know you're friends with my business partner, the president and founder of Fit Body Bootcamp, which I know we're talking offline. He just, promoted me as CEO, which is still crazy to believe, but I've learned a lot through him from him over the years. And one thing he actually, told me a few months ago when we were talking about business, et cetera, he's like, Bryce, first and foremost, there's a lot of CEOs that are just focused solely in the business. And certainly that's good to an extent. But I think the reason that I've been so successful in building this empire is because I'm a marketer. And when I market, that's my focus. It just so happens that I love fitness. So Fit Body Bootcamp is one of my products. But I love nutrition. Truline supplementation is one of my products. He also has some men's personal development program called The Project for the listeners who's heard that. So just to reinforce your point, from his perspective, his mindset, he's a marketer, and it just so happens these other businesses fall in that same fashion. And Erik, from what you're telling me, that's really your mindset as well.
I think that's why I like Bedros so much. We connected, but yeah, I was a marketer. I cut my teeth in like the guerrilla marketing there, and then started to grow and understand marketing in general, and then getting all the way into what I know today with copy and video and all of that stuff. But it was very elementary back when I first started. But that's when I realized, I knew I liked to sell, but I was also really good at marketing. And then I've just honed that skill over the past 20 years. So 100% right.
Love it. I want to take this down the path through franchising because you are definitely a franchising expert. But, speaking of marketing, and that's where your mindset, as I just shared the story as well, like what are some strategies that, worked with you maybe in the very beginning days, but then certainly marketing changes and grows. So, not only from, when you first started, but also what are some marketing strategies that still serve you to this day?
So back then, it was about guerrilla marketing, like boots on the ground, getting out there, pounding the streets. And what I didn't realize at the time, they were building a big brand, and they use guerrilla marketing to build a big brand. What I knew is if I have somebody out there dressed as the Statue of Liberty or Uncle Sam waving on the street, it was providing visibility to my location. And so they were telling me it's visibility, and I don't know if they knew it at the time, but they were really just creating massive brand awareness as we had all of these sign waivers out on the streets. So we went into Kansas City that first year, and it was the first time Liberty Tax had been in Kansas City. And there was about a dozen of us that opened up there that first year. And in the tax business, you all open up, basically January 1. That's when you open up for business. So think about it. In Kansas City, there's 12 locations that opened up. Everybody had somebody out there waving as a Statue of Liberty, had a big sign that they were waving. And then we were going around to all of the businesses delivering cookies dressed as the Statue of Liberty so they could associate the two. So I learned about association. And then we would leave donuts. So I learned how to don't go to the doorkeeper, the first person that is in front of you when you go in to deliver something to somebody. You go and make eye contact with the first person that's smiling at you, and you go straight to them to deliver the message that you want to deliver to that particular business, which for us at the time was coupons. Leave some coupons out, and then we're blasting our message as we're talking to that one person, but we know 50 people are listening to us. So with all of that, about a month into the tax season, we would hear from our customers, how did you hear about us? We'd ask them, how did you hear about us? And we would hear, how could we not hear about you? You guys are everywhere. And that was the perception that was created. You are everywhere. And now kind of translate that into today's world. That's just omnipresence marketing. Now we do that with all the different social channels combined with some of the still old school boots on the ground, but it's all about omnipresence marketing. So the same thing back then was really boots on the ground. And then today it's much more omnipresence with social, texting, voice and podcasting, all of that stuff.
Love it. A lot of takeaways there. Drilling in a little bit more, especially Erik, since you have so much kind of visibility in the franchising world, part of the value obviously of joining a franchise is a well-established name, a brand. So you have that obviously at your back, but also too, there is an expectation for each location and operator to execute the marketing as well. So from your lens, where does the responsibility lie specific to marketing on the individual owner operator versus the franchisor?
I see some of the biggest mistakes that young franchisors make is when they're preparing their franchise disclosure document, they're trying to have everything done inexpensively for the franchisees. One of the things that young brands cut out, and they don't realize how it's going to impact them, is making the franchisees spend X amount on marketing. Because young emerging franchisors with maybe 10, 15, 50 units open, they think, well, the franchisees are just going to want to market. And they're going to realize that actually helps their business and brings customers in and generates revenue. What they find out is franchisees typically don't market because they're concerned with their P&L right away. So they're not front loading the marketing, which in turn their customer count isn't as strong and their revenue is weaker. But the brands that make franchisees spend X amount a month or a year on marketing, and it's written into the franchise agreement, the FDD, those franchisees get out of the gate stronger. And so they make the whole brand better. And now with franchisees coming into the system, they realize that marketing does work. And there's pressure to market versus cut back on marketing. So it's a two-way. It's two people with the same goal, and franchisors don't realize that. New business owners really cut corners on marketing. So it's the franchisee's job to spend all the money on marketing and to do that. So it's ultimately their responsibility. But if franchisors don't encourage it, and if franchisors don't have some teeth in the franchise agreement for franchisees to actually do it, then it hurts everybody.
Totally. And Erik, that's something that we've made a big shift, even our brand over the last 2 years, even though Bedros has been an incredible marketer from day one, but basically drawing a marketing fund from our franchisees so that way we can push that out and create more brand awareness, which trickles down to more clients, and then having a minimum spend and expectation that we do on a monthly basis, because you're right, at least in my experience, there is some hesitation, especially for new owners, et cetera, to invest that money because there's, no clear, takeaway, at least initially, but through time, it actually just serves them way better. And our most successful operators are definitely some of the most successful marketers in our brand as well. So just to validate that point.
A lot of franchisees, when they're new, they're coming into the system, and nothing always goes great when you first open up a business. There's always bumps in the road, and that's just being an entrepreneur. That's being a business owner. And then you start to go through this phase where you are blaming the franchisor for different things, and they're not doing this, they're not doing that. And you can blame them for, all the woes you can blame the franchisor, or you can blame it on, hey, I'm not doing enough myself for marketing. Now, if you have set it up from the beginning, like you guys are making them have a minimum spend, now the franchisees are telling them, hey, how much are you spending on marketing? Because I spend X amount and I get X amount in return. So I love it when it shifts from the franchisor making somebody do something to the franchisees that are actually implementing that and executing it are the ones telling other franchisees, this is why you're not successful, because you're not doing X, Y, and Z.
Totally.
And it ties right into marketing. Most of the time, these franchisees are not spending the money marketing.
Totally. And that was us for the similar situation for us, a handful of years, but we've really stepped up that game. And that's why, we're shooting this in 2021 and in summertime. We just finished our spring challenge. We had, 15,000 challengers across North America because of that same principle. And our locations have blown up because of that, at the tail end of what I hope is, COVID now kind of, going off the rails. So. Well, good. Well, a lot more to dive into in terms of franchising, but I do want to allow you to storytell a little bit more because you've had such success in the industry. So, talked about, launching your first business, Liberty Tax, and then going to Kansas City. I also know you scaled that to, I think, 12 units, but then you bought a regional development right and then even expanded upwards of 42. So can you kind of continue that story, if you will, so that way our audience just has a bigger scope of your experience and your success?
So I had those locations in Kansas City, Missouri, and then this brand had an opportunity to buy a regional development, area rep. They're called all kinds of different things. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned all of them. But basically, we went in and we bought the region of Austin, Texas, from like Waco to almost to San Antonio. So we bought an area, and our goal was to develop that into a large region for Liberty Tax. And we bought it when there was 4 locations there. So 4 franchisees operating locations there. And I remember flying in to Austin after we bought it. And when you're on an airplane, everyone asks, what do you do? What do you do? I said, I'm a regional developer for Liberty Tax. And they're like, who's that? What is that? And, it was just kind of met with crickets. And, but over the years, doing that omnipresence marketing, people thought we were everywhere. And so over 10 years, I grew Liberty Tax in Austin, Texas from 4 stores to 42 stores when we eventually sold that. Now, I didn't own all 42 stores. I helped franchisees come in and buy because I was that main point of contact, and I helped support them and I helped grow them. And I was that main person helping all of those franchisees grow their business. So that's really where I got a lot of experience in franchising. From franchise development, I was selling franchises at the corporate office during that time. The reason is because I knew the founder of that brand held a 3:00 meeting for 1 hour every day of the week, helping his franchise development reps sell franchises. And I thought, man, I can make money, I can learn franchise development, and I can get mentored every day at 3:00 for an hour. And so I did that, and that helped me learn how to sell franchises, and learn how to sell franchises helped me grow my regional development to those 42 locations. And it was really a passive type business at that point, because we were just, focused on once you get one franchisee open in any type of brick and mortar brand, service not so much, but any type of brick and mortar brand for a franchisee, once the franchisor gets them open, they're going to open up that second one and that third one, and they're really not going to need a whole lot of help from you as a franchisor at that point. The good ones don't. And so that's really what I learned there, is to grow and develop the best franchisees. There's always a bottom performers, and I help those bottom performers exit the system and go on and do something else, and help promote and lift up the top performers. And that's really what we did best as an area developer, area rep in Austin, Texas. So we eventually sold that with 42 locations, sold it back to the corporate office. And it was at that point is when I moved back to South Dakota, because I had a good chunk of money that came in from that exit. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I can kind of do whatever I want right now. And so I moved back to South Dakota. We had our first kid, my wife and I. And so this is where we started our life. And this was about 10 years ago. And we, at that point, we had sold that, and I wanted to go into franchise consulting. And so that's when I really started to dive into the franchise consulting world. And I really took it really easy the first couple of years because I had so many contacts in franchising. They just wanted to see what I was doing next. And they would reach out to me, "What are you doing next, Erik?" And I would tell them, and then they would kind of do what I'm doing next. And so I did that for a couple of years, took the low-hanging fruit in the franchise consulting world, and then that's when I started to buy more brands myself. I bought another regional development, a third regional development. I bought Solo Salon Studios in Orange County, California. We grew that to 12 locations. We sold that to private equity. And in the meantime, I'm learning how to sell franchises or help people find franchises to buy. And I'm doing it the most efficient way possible because I had a lot of other things going on. And so franchisee, franchise consultant at the same time for probably a 5 to 6 year period. And probably the best exit was the Solo Salon Studio exit. So a lot of different franchises in the meantime. Bought Solo Salons, developed that to 12 locations, sold that to the private equity brand that eventually bought Solo Salons corporate office. And that was a really good experience for us. And then that just dovetailed into all kinds of other things that I've been doing ever since.
Good for you, man. That's incredible. To unpack that a little bit, what would you say, Erik, is like your zone of genius? Like, how were you able to acquire the skill set, execute, in really simple terms? What's your zone of genius? And then two-part question, not only for you, what should be the zone of genius for operators of franchise systems across the way?
So my zone of genius, I think, is finding the right people to do their highest and best use within the businesses. So with Solo Salons, I knew my areas of weakness, and I found the business partners that would be that counterbalance to me in whatever it was. I was definitely the marketing person in there. I brought a partner on that was going to be more boots on the ground in the area. I brought another partner on that is really good with financials, and then another one that is just really good at operations. So I assembled this team so we could go in and do 12 locations versus doing just 1 or 2 locations myself. So I like bringing in the right people, finding the right people, paying them well, or giving them a lot of equity to be able to do something bigger with a brand or a business versus that I could just do on my own. So I love making the right connections, finding the right people, putting them in the seat. And then for me, I'm not a micromanager. I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I don't have to be, the best CEO or the best CMO. If I need to find somebody else that's better at whatever than me, I'm happy to do it. And I love to empower them. So I'd say that's my zone of genius.
That's incredible. And then outwardly facing to our audience, like what should the zone of genius be for an operator? And I guess it's kind of a loaded question because there's so many different concepts, et cetera, but really focusing in, if someone's interested in becoming a franchisee of a brand, what should their zone of genius be in order to be successful?
If they're going to be the operator, the owner operator of the franchise, the brand, they kind of need to be a jack of all trades in some ways. They just need to have that, first of all, they just need to have that go-getter mentality. They just need to look at a problem and fix it. They can't be blaming other people for things going wrong. So from a mindset standpoint, that needs to be the mindset. You can't rely on everybody else for your success. You've got to be a winner, and then you've got to believe in yourself, and that's why you're getting into business. Too many people, I think, get into business and thinking the franchisor is going to make me successful versus I'm going to make this franchise successful. And then I think you need to really need to see what you're good at and what you're not, and just be honest with yourself with that. And then you'd start making strategic hires around you to be able to do the day-to-day of the business. As an example of that is if you have a fitness studio. Well, I've had fitness studios. I've hired the wrong people for fitness studios because I hired someone that wasn't a salesperson. They weren't focused on sales. They weren't focused on generating revenue. They were focused on they thought it was like a relaxing job. They didn't have that aggressive, like we've got to grow this business and take care of our members. And so if you can't identify that and make decisions to hire and fire people quickly so your business grows and doesn't suffer, that's another trait that I think somebody needs in business, because you just need to be a good decision maker. I think at the end of the day, if I had to say what the main thing that I would look for in a franchisee, that they can make good decisions. And you think about that happens during the sales process. When someone's looking at buying a franchise, they're making micro decisions every step of the way. Most good franchisors are watching that. And when I say good franchisors, they're not just trying to get a body into their franchise. They're trying to find franchisees that are going to actually be successful and help grow that brand. So when I think of somebody making these micro decisions along the way, they show up for the phone calls as they're going through the sales process. They're filling out the information. They're engaged. They're asking good questions. And it's all fun for these guys becoming a franchisee until you actually have to sign on the dotted line. And that's when the franchisor says, hey, we like you. Do you like us? Are you ready to sign? Because, there's nothing else to do. And that's when you see people start to squirm, people start to make excuses. And that's where you see, can they really make a decision? So the best franchisors, that you have to set that up in the right way, or else, you're setting them up for failure. But if you set that up in the right way as a franchisor, helping them see that you are going to make a decision one way or the other, then that new franchisee, if they say yes, that's usually a really good sign that they're going to be making a lot more really good decisions. And they might be wrong on some of their decisions that they make in the future, but too many people, Bryce, don't make decisions. And if you can't make a decision, you're probably not going to be a good franchisee, because that's just the first of many decisions.
Yeah, amen to that. And just to validate that, and actually to show some vulnerability, Erik, I think in the first stages of our brand, Fit Body Bootcamp, the first probably 2 or 3 years, the vetting process wasn't to the par as what it is now. So we've really streamlined that over the last 3 to 4 years. And our owners, they have light behind their eyes. They're bought into the mission, and we go through that vetting process because that's so important. Yes, we have the brand backing and a lot of the systems, the marketing, the operations, but it really does take a go-getter. And that's really just true not only in franchising, but probably every business, on the face of the earth. So.
Yeah, and that's super common, Bryce. I mean, most franchisors make that mistake. So, if I can talk to them early enough and start to advise them on that, then they can avoid those mistakes. But that's super common. But I know what you guys have done over there at Fit Body, and I know some of your franchisees that are absolutely crushing it out there.
Oh yeah.
And so I know the large strides that you guys have made in helping your franchisees, and I mean, it's impressive from this outsider looking in.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. All right, Erik, now I want to take a step back, and granted, I love this opportunity because, I'm in my world of Fit Body Bootcamp, and certainly have had exposure to other franchisors with the IFA and just some of the networking groups that we're in as representing the franchisor. But, the fact to have you here is incredible. Taking a step back, what would you say the overall value of the franchising industries in general? And then in your experience, what's the common avatar? Like, who specifically typically makes the best franchisors, or I guess, the age, demographic, et cetera? Just trying to kind of color in a little bit of details for our audience.
The value in a franchise is it should just shortcut everything for you. I mean, if you think about starting a business from scratch, and I've helped start a franchisor from scratch. It's a massive amount of work starting from scratch. So even if it looks like a simple business of whatever that is, whether it's painting, it's fitness, it's beauty, it's food, whatever it is, take it down to the business looks really simple and I can just do it on my own. Of course you can do it on your own, but what a lot of people underestimate is the work and the risk that it takes to be able to get that business up and going. So the value in a good franchisor is they shortcut everything. They have, it sounds so simple, but really good vendors for you to use. I mean, it was amazing when I was building out a franchisor, how much time was spent on finding the best vendors to help our franchisees. It's so easy to get the wrong people helping you on your business. So if you're a business owner out there on your own, that's going to be a challenge. And then all of the SOPs, all of the learnings that franchisees have made, the founder has made. You don't have to make those mistakes. So that's another shortcut. There's so many mistakes that we all make, and the best franchisors are always learning from these mistakes. And I know you guys do that really well, and just how you get feedback from franchisees. But the faster that you can get feedback from franchisees, what works, what doesn't. You have franchisees out there that are testing things. Now, as a new franchisee, I have access to all of that. And so it's again, just another shortcut. I can call up the franchisor, email them and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this one thing, this marketing thing, this tactic, this strategy, and ask, have you done it before? And has it worked? And most of the time you're going to hear, yes, we've done it before, and no, it didn't work. And here's why, or here's how it worked and it did well. And here's how we've improved upon it. Or maybe you have something that you can actually improve upon the process yourself as a franchisee. But there's so much value in the greater franchise, having all of these different people out there that are fellow business owners with the same goal, moving forward with the same thing. So one of the values in a franchise that I think is underestimated is just the friendships that you make and the things that you learn from all of these other franchisees. That's incredible. Relationships within the franchise system have been amazing, and those have been some of the best things that I look at as I look back at my franchising career. I have maybe out of certain franchises, but those relationships that I've made there, whether it's with the founder, some key employees, or franchisees at the time, are still really good friends today and give me really good advice today. So that is kind of the unknown thing that people underestimate as they get into a franchise.
Love it. And I couldn't agree more, man, Erik, because for me, being in this space for 9 years, I have friends that are owners from Alaska to Florida to South Dakota. We were talking offline, a good buddy in Sioux Falls, and that's just really enriched my life, giving me, a great network, but also different ways to approach the business. I couldn't agree with you more there.
So you asked about the avatar, who's the common person for franchising? And I want to make sure that I loop back to that. I'd really see two different types of people that get into franchising. One is the corporate America person. They're in corporate America, or they're in a job doing a thing and they want to do it on their own, or they want to get out of the industry that they're in and get into a new industry. And they are going to be that person that is working in the business. Like, they want to be the business owner. They want to be the face of the business. And I think that is a fantastic one. That's what most franchises are. Mm-hmm. Somebody comes from corporate America or another role, making money somewhere as an advisor, a consultant, or working for somebody in an industry, and then they buy a franchise, and now they're out of corporate America. They are building their destiny. They are building their business so they can enjoy the fruits of their labor, which most of them aren't doing right now because they're building somebody else's business, and now they get to build their own business. And so that's probably the most common avatar, the person that comes from corporate America, buys a business, runs the business, is the operator of that business. The second one in franchising is the entrepreneur that may be a successful business owner, maybe a large multimillionaire successful business owner, and they don't want to reinvent everything because they know how hard it is to start from scratch. So what they do is they find a brand that has great training and is conducive for semi-absentee ownership. And this is what Sola Salon was for us, very semi-absentee ownership because of the structure. There wasn't a lot of employees, there wasn't a lot of moving parts, but there was a lot of capital that it took. So typically those types of businesses require more capital, have less employees, have incredible training, and the owners of those brands buy one, and then they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 20 plus units open because it's simple to replicate and duplicate as they do it. So that's exactly what we did at Solo Salons. We were not the owner operators. We were the entrepreneurs that brought in a manager. The manager went to training, learned everything, and then we managed that manager. So that's the other avatar in franchising that a lot of people don't think about. Here's the challenge with that though. Most franchise brands are owner-operator brands, and most But there's a lot of brands out there that will tell you they're not owner operator, they're semi-absentee, when they really don't have any validation of being semi-absentee. They might have 1 or 2 or 10 people trying it, but they're not doing it successfully. The most successful brands do very well, and their franchisees are very happy being with their semi-absentee owners. But that's my word of caution to anybody that thinks that's easy. And most brands that say they're semi-absentee are definitely not.
Interesting. That's good point and feedback. Now, when we're attracting, a franchisee avatar, and since you have tons of experience, people are coming to you looking for your consulting. What are the common questions, probably the most common questions that you get about the franchising industry from the people that come to you looking for answers?
Most of them, they think they know what they want. They think, I want to look at this restaurant. They underestimate how much it really costs, or they want a brand that's been around for a long time. They want, so they come thinking that they know what they want, but they really don't know what they want. So after several questions to really help them understand that they don't know what they want, that's when you can help them open up their eyes to seeing what franchising really is and what kind of opportunities are really out there. Because there's some fantastic franchise opportunities out there that are not really out in the public eye. Like some of the best opportunities most people don't even know about. Like there's one company that Crumble cookies. That's the opposite of health and fitness. But Crumble has done very well, and someone sees that and they think the cookies are good and they want to buy the brand, but they don't realize the brand's probably mostly sold out everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so those are the people that usually reach out to me on social media. They listen to my podcast, or they follow me somewhere, and they want to buy something that seems to be really popular. And then you start to ask them questions of like, what kind of employees do you want to manage? Well, I don't want to manage a lot of employees. I want to manage really good employees that enjoy working. Well, what kind of turnover would be acceptable to you? And they say, we don't want a whole lot of turnover. Well, they came to me wanting fast food, but fast food is, low wages, high employee turnover, and all of these other things. And that's just a small example of helping someone open up their eyes. And so somebody like that probably is a better fit for Solo Salon Studios, because you manage, we had 12 locations and we had 5 employees, and one guy was making 6 figures and he managed the other 4. And we didn't have to do a whole lot as founders, as owners of that brand. So, that's a point that I wanted to make.
Interesting. Yeah, I love it. Now from an investment perspective, and again, this kind of ranges the gamut, I would imagine, but, what are the investment ranges you've seen for, franchisees coming into a brand to get their business off the ground?
So service-based in businesses are a lot less usually. So service-based business, think painting, junk removal, anything that you don't have to have an expensive piece of equipment, and you just hire lower wage employees or 1099 people to go take care of things, and your main expense is going to be marketing. Those are lower cost businesses, sub $200,000, and sometimes a lot less than $200,000. There's some out there that are between $150,000 and $250,000, $300,000 that are brick and mortar. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's beauty, and it all depends on those ones, how much the franchisor wants you to spend on the build out and all of that. I think the better franchisors don't require you to spend so much money doing a really expensive build out, having tile that is the top end tile, or whatever the highest end type of fixtures and furniture in there. You don't need the best stuff to really generate revenue. So I think franchisors in that 150 to 300 range that are brick and mortar, beauty, fitness, that's probably a good range to be. And then you got some that are on the higher end. Maybe it's a fitness or a beauty brand that is a larger footprint. Maybe instead of 1,200 square feet, it's 3,000 square feet, or they have a lot of equipment, or they, instead of having in a beauty type system, instead of having individual rooms, like 6 individual rooms to be able to do different beauty treatments, they have open floor plans with curtains. So it just depends on the brand and what the look and feel of the brand is. But I tend to like brands that aren't putting a bunch of money into the build out and kind of do things a little bit lower cost, so franchisees can grow and scale. If somebody had $1 million, they can do a lot more of a brand that costs half as much versus a brand that is really expensive. And then you've got, when in the salon business at Sola, each one was $1 million to build out. We would get help from the landlords, but that was a large build out expense, but that was our main expense. Very little marketing and very little expense after that, but that was the major expense.
Got it. Okay. Erik, one thing that I want to kind of fall back on, because probably about 10 or 15 minutes ago in our conversation, you talked about, brands asking for feedback, getting feedback from their franchisees to really innovate and grow. That's something that we've really taken to heart over the last, 3-4 years and made, exponentially a big difference. And one of the moves that we made was creating a franchise advisory council, which basically acts as our kind of interim feedback. We meet quarterly, and it's been really, really beneficial to us. So I was just curious from your perspective, is that standard practice of franchise advisory council? And just curious what other ways that you see brands collecting feedback from their people.
I think brands are scared to do that. If they don't have it, they don't understand the value of it, and they're afraid to do that because they think there's just going to be a bunch of whiners in there telling them everything that they do wrong. If you do it the right way, you have franchisees that are kind of voted in there and franchised by their peers, and then franchisees that are picked by the company because they know that they're really good at maybe organizing thoughts or bring in good ideas and solutions to the table. So I think at the core, the Franchise Advisory Council has to get good feedback from all of the franchisees, and some of it's going to be heated feedback and things that they don't like, but then they get together and they get all of this different feedback and they package it in a way that's solution oriented to the franchisor. So it's really a collaborative type effort because the franchisor needs that feedback. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, if you just hear from the complainers out there, you think everybody is complaining about different things, when in reality that might not be broken. There might not need to be anything done with the feedback that you're getting from the complainers. And maybe there's other issues that are going on that is really constructive to be able to help improve the franchise system overall. Or maybe the complainers have a legit beef with something, but they just don't know how to communicate it in a way to get a good solution from the franchisor. So I just think, that it's just that in between the franchisees and the franchisor, if you have a good FAC, Franchise Advisory Council, it's very beneficial to both the franchisees and the franchisor. It's a great feedback loop, and I've seen a lot of franchisors really benefit from that. But if the franchisors gives resistance to that, I think it just starts to, there's just more and more resistance until it's actually done. So I encourage franchisors to have an FAC and to take care of those people, fly them in and really listen to them, because if you get the right people in there, it's a very, very good feedback loop.
Yeah, totally. And been an absolute game changer for us for the reasons you listed. So I'll continue we go. And I just wanted to get a broader perspective from a guy like you who has so much, insight to the industry. Now, this all said, we've, painted the huge positives of franchising, and, you've had an incredible experience. So have I, the last decade of my life. And it's just been like a godsend for me. But playing the devil's advocate a little bit, what are some of the challenges that you see within the industry in general?
As a franchisee, there's a lot that you can't control. There's teeth in the contract, there's reasons for it, but you just can't control everything. You can't do what you want to do when you want to do it. So entrepreneurs that, want to do all that, they don't want to have those boundaries in place, they're probably not going to do very well within a franchise system. So I think that's probably one of the disadvantages of franchising is there's just more controls around it. And I think, one of the other challenges is, as franchisees, you always want the franchisor to do more for you. You're always going to want that. You always think they should do more for you. In reality, it seems like you use the franchisor as a crutch instead of you just taking that your own personal responsibility and it's your business. And if it is to be, it's up to me type attitude. And so I think it's the wrong people getting into franchising, Bryce. It's the people that shouldn't be a business owner in general, and they definitely shouldn't be a franchisee because they think it's the easy shortcut. It's a shortcut, but it's not easy. And you have to take personal responsibility for it. So if you're not ready to take personal responsibility for stuff, if you're not ready to really put in the effort, the grind, the hard work, and really see your own faults, then, franchising is probably not going to be right for you. So those are some of the challenges that I see. If you get the wrong from some other things, just thinking about it, if you at the franchisor level, if you start if you have the us and them mentality instead of the we mentality, then that starts to drive a wedge between the franchisor and the franchisee. And especially if the employees at the franchisor start to get an attitude and start to think that they know more than the franchisees when they've never done it before, and they're not, and so if they start to have this attitude, kind of a superior attitude towards the franchisees out there working, that can be a real negative. And so franchisors that don't get those employees out right away and replace them with really good employees that are actually care about and help the franchisor and the franchisee, then that's a recipe for disaster. So that could be a bad thing. And that just goes into the us versus them mentality. So the bad thing about franchising, if the franchisor goes down that road, it really creates a divide, and it's really hard to fix that once it's started.
Yeah. Great knowledge. And like I said, I mean, just to reiterate that point, franchising from my perspective, and venture to say yours, has just been incredible. But just like anything in life, there's positives and negatives. So I want to take the opportunity just to pick your brain there. This all said, Erik, man, you're an awesome guy. There's been so much value that I've learned just being in the call, let alone our audience. So I want to thank you for that. I want to also be respectful of your time. So we have a few more minutes, I guess, to transition to the lightning round if you're up for it, for us to kind of peel back some big nuggets from you. Does that work for you?
Let's do it.
Cool. Well, I think, business in general, people are passionate, at least in order to be successful. What would you say is, one of your biggest sources of passion these days, and why?
Man, helping people. I know it's so cliche, helping people, but COVID hit, and I started helping franchisees that were following me on social media. I took time off from my own businesses and just started helping them. That turned into a mastermind where I got to help them in a deeper way, and that's just continuing to grow. The Franchise Tribe Mastermind is growing because I love helping people, and they're all getting connected with each other, different people, different brands, different industries. So I really enjoy helping franchisees get out of the day-to-day of their business and start working on other things in their business to be able to prepare it for an exit or to diversify into other things. But at the end of the day, just helping them with their businesses. And then franchisors. I've seen so many young franchisors with so much potential, and yet they're not building things the right way because they've never had somebody like me with the experience to be able to come in and say, here's the right way to build a franchise, and this is why it is. Because some of it's counterintuitive, going back to the marketing thing. Why would I have my franchisees spend X amount in marketing? Because I want them to save money. Well, no, you don't. You want them to build a business, and sometimes you need to put teeth in the contract to help them build a business. And then a lot of these founders, they just don't know how to sell franchises and how to sell to the right people, so they don't end up like so many franchisors do with the wrong franchisees in the beginning, because it's really hard to climb out of that hole if you get the wrong franchisees. So man, at the end of the day, it's my family. It just drives me with everything that I do, and then helping other people from franchisees to franchisors.
Love it, man. And that you do. So big shout out for you for that. Next up, being a coach, a consultant within the industry, you give a lot of incredible advice that you have today for our audience. What would you say was one of the best pieces of advice that you've been given, and why?
One of the best pieces of advice that I was given early on when I made my first 6 figures in franchising. One of my mentors at the time, he said, once you go from making a little bit of money to a large jump, whatever that number is. For me, it was 100,000 initially. Once I made, early 20s, making 100 grand, that was a big jump for me. He said, don't change your lifestyle for a year. And then, then you have another big jump. Maybe you're making $100,000 a year, and then you're making 500 or 500 to $1 million. Whatever those numbers are for you, where it's a big jump, and those were some of the numbers for me. I didn't change my lifestyle. And I had a reward, I enjoyed certain things, but I didn't change my lifestyle for a year. And that really helped me just, realize gosh, this jump in income, jump in net worth, jump in whatever it was, really didn't change who I was. And I look back, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't buy something stupid at the time that really wasn't an asset. So it helped me continue to grow my money, invest my money, and put it into the right things versus just things that would depreciate and lose a bunch of value right away. So that was one of the best things that I learned, back in my early 20s,
and good on
that I still remember today.
Yeah, good on you for that. And that's definitely a foundational reason why you're so successful. So that's awesome. And audience, that's huge, big takeaway, because I see it all the time, coaching, consulting, young entrepreneurs who hit it big, but then they overextend themselves and they get back in a bad situation. So All right. One of the last, I have two more for you, Erik. Certainly leaders are readers. You put out amazing content, and also I know you input it to be the successful guy that you are. What would you say is a best book recommendation or source of learning that's really impacted you that you can share with our audience?
Well, two things. One, source of learning. My buddy Justin Donald has a lifestyle investor podcast. I always learn from him. He's the real deal, just a great human in general, and puts out a bunch of great content on investing. We got some cool things that we're working on together. The book that I just have really loved recently is Who Not How. There's a problem, there's something going on in your business. You need to look for the who, not just the how. And it's so easy for entrepreneurs that are caught up in the weeds of their business just try to figure things out. But I always look for the person that can fix the thing, or the right person for the job.
Awesome. All right, my friend, this has been incredible. I got one last question to bring it home. And again, you've provided so much value as is, but what would you say for our audience who are interested in fitness, interested in business, interested in entrepreneurship and franchising? What would you say would be a last piece of parting wisdom that will better their lot in life and business?
Man, one last piece of wisdom, you just got to get connected with mentors, people that are ahead of you. And I know like you guys over at FitBody, you, Bryce, and Bedros are huge believers in that. Bedros is one of those guys for me. But the best piece of advice that I can give around that is don't try to go to the biggest influencer, the biggest person right away. Go to the person that's a little bit ahead of you in something, get mentored by them, learn from them. You don't need somebody that's on, that is the headline speaker of all the major events, but you just need to get in the habit of finding people, finding mentors, learning from them, giving value to them. And man, the whole world opens up to you very quickly once you start doing that.
Amen to that, Erik. Well, my friend, this has been awesome. Before we go, where can our audience connect with you at?
Best place is franchisesecrets.com, franchise secrets.
franchisesecrets.com. That is it. Well, Erik, before we shoot, I want to just acknowledge you, man. You've been an incredible source of inspiration for me. I've learned a lot from you, and certainly through Bedros, through that connection. And you've added just such a ton of value today. And I want to thank you for your expertise. I want to thank you for being a family man. And then, of course, thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it. I know our audience has got a lot of value.
Bryce, thank you so much. It was a great time. I love what you guys are doing over there at FitBody.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And audience, I know you got a ton of value, assuming that you did. Go ahead and like and subscribe on YouTube and write us an awesome review on iTunes. That way, again, we can keep producing this content for free. And again, that's all for today. And again, thanks, Erik. Appreciate you, buddy.